Welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. Please join me in this video. I'm going to read about the Igbo Jews of West Africa. It's been proven that they are the Israelites of the Bible. And I'm going to read from the book, a very well-known, famous book, especially among college elites, people in school, students. The interesting narrative of the life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavus Vassa, the African, written by himself. So this is his about his childhood before he went into slavery. He was so let me start on page 10. Now this is about his tribe, the Igbo tribe. I'm just taking a small part of it because there's not enough time to go over the whole thing. As to religion, the natives believe that there is one creator of all things and that he lives in the sun and is girded with a belt that he may never eat or drink. But according to some, he smokes a pipe, which is his own favorite luxury. They believe that he governs events, especially our deaths or captivity. So I'll stop right there. So that's the same thing that the Israelites, that Yahweh of the Bible, that he can they know that he controlled those things, and it's written in his scripture that he in his scripture that he controls certain things like that. Let me go down to the bottom of the page. We compute the year from the day on which the sun crosses the line, and on its setting, that evening there is a general shout throughout the land. At least I can speak from my own knowledge throughout our vicinity. The people at the same time make a great noise with rattles, not unlike the basket rattles used by children here, though much larger, and hold up their hands to heaven for a blessing. It is then that the greatest offerings are made, and those children whom our wise men foretell will be fortunate are then presented to different people. I remember many used to come to see me, and I was carried about to others for that purpose. They have many offerings, particularly at full moons, generally two at harvest before the fruits are taken out of the ground. And when any young animals are killed, sometimes they offer part of them as a sacrifice, just like the Israelites of the Old Testament of the Bible. These offerings, when made by one of the heads of the family, served for the whole. I remember we often had them at my father's and my uncle's, and their families have been present. Some of our offerings are eaten with bitter herbs. We had a saying among us to any one of a cross temper that if they were to be eaten, they should be eaten with bitter herbs. We practiced circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. Like them also, our children were named from some event, some circumstance, or fancied foreboding at the time of their birth. I was named Olaudah, which in our language signifies vicissitude or fortunate, also one favored and having a loud voice and well spoken. I remember we never polluted the name of the object of our adoration. On the contrary, it was also mentioned with the greatest reverence, and we were totally unacquainted with swearing and all those terms of abuse and reproach which find their way so readily and copiously into the languages of more civilized people. The only expressions of that kind I remember were, may you rot, or may you swell, or may a beast take you. And that is very calm and serene compared to things people say now in many places. So notice, so these things that he's talking about, many of the Hebrew, the Israelites of the Bible, those are the same things that Yahweh had them to practice. It was their law. So let me keep going. Now listen now. As I have before remarked, that the natives of this part of Africa are extremely cleanly. This necessary habit of decency was with us as a part of religion, and therefore we had many purifications and washings, indeed, almost as many, and used on the same occasions as, if my recollection does not fail me, as the Jews. So he knows that they're doing the same things his tribe, the Igbo people of Nigeria or of their area, he knows that they're doing the same things that the Jews of the Bible are doing. And this is found within a great many of the, or most of the Bantu tribes and West African tribes, because they are the Israelites. Let me keep going. Those that touched the dead at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. Every woman, too, at certain times, was forbidden to come into a dwelling house or touch any person or anything we ate. I was so fond of my mother, I could not keep from her or avoid touching her at some of those periods, in consequence of which I was obliged to be kept out with her in a little house made for that purpose, till offering was made, and then we were purified. That is the exact same thing that the Israelites in the Old Testament did. Though we had no places of public worship, we had priests and magicians or wise men. I do not remember whether they had different offices or whether they were united in the same persons, but they were held in great reverence by the people, just like the priests of ancient Israel. They calculated our time and foretold events as their name imported, for we all called them Afo, Weka, which signifies calculators or yearly men, our year being called Afo. They wore their beards, and when they died, they were succeeded by their sons. I believe that's like the Levites. Most of their implements and things of value were interred with them. Pipes and tobacco were also put into the grave with the corpse, which was always perfumed and ornamented, and animals were offered in sacrifice to them. None accompanied their funerals but those of the same profession or tribe. Those buried them after sunset and always returned from the grave by a different way from which they went. These magicians were also our doctors and physicians. They practiced bleeding by cupping and were very skillful in healing wounds and expelling poisons. So that right there is the same thing. The priests of ancient Israel did all these things. They were also doctors and physicians. They tended to all these issues. So let me go down. Such is the imperfect sketch my memory has furnished me with the manners and customs of a people among whom I first drew my breath. And here I cannot forbear suggesting what has long struck me very forcibly, namely, the strong analogy which, even by this sketch, imperfect as it is, appears to prevail in the manners and customs of my countrymen and those of the Jews before they reached the land of promise, and particularly the patriarchs while they were yet in the pastoral state which is described in Genesis, an analogy which alone would induce me to think that the one people has sprung from the other. This man is telling you that he knows that his people, the appear that the manners and custom of his countrymen and those of the Jews are the same. So this is amazing. This is wonderful. Let me keep going here. Um, Indeed, this is the opinion of Dr. Gill, who in his commentary on Genesis very ably deduces the pedigree of the Africans from Aphur and Afra, the descendants of Abraham by Keturah, his wife and concubine, for both these titles are applied to her. It is also conformable to the sentiments of Dr. John Clark, formerly Dean of Sarum. In his Truth of the Christian Religion, both these authors concur in ascribing to us this original. The reasonings of this gentleman are still further confirmed by the scripture chronology, and if any further corroboration were inquired, this resemblance in so many respects is a strong evidence in support of the opinion. Like the Israelites in their primitive state, our government was conducted by our chiefs or judges, our wise men and elders, and the head of a family with us enjoyed a similar authority over his household with that which is ascribed to Abraham and the other patriarchs. The law of retaliation obtained almost universally with us as with them, and even their religion appeared to have shed upon us a ray of its glory, though broken and spent in its passage or eclipsed by the cloud with which time, tradition, and ignorance might have enveloped it. For we had our circumcision, a rule, I believe, peculiar to that people, the Jews. Circumcision was very peculiar to them. We had also our sacrifices and burnt offerings, our washings and purifications on the same occasions as they had. They're the same people. They are the Israelites. That's why they're doing the same thing that they did. They are the Israelites. And the Israelites are black, African. As to the difference, now listen, as to the difference of color between the Aboan Africans and the modern Jews, I shall not presume to account for it. It is a subject which has engaged the pens of men of both genius and learning, and is far above my strength. So, as far as the reading in that book, I'll stop there for now. But there's more that I want to get into because there's many more proofs in this book that the Igbo people, which Olayuda Ekiano comes from, that his tribe, the Igbo people are the Israelites. There's more in here. And this is, like I said, this is a very popular book, and a lot of people have spoken highly of it. I've read about it online. And so I want to so I want to conclude with saying that there's many books that I have, and there's many videos of people, rabbis, saying that the Igbo people are the Israelites. They know they are the bloodline Israelites. And there's European scholars. Among the one of the most famous or most renowned is Tudor Parfit. And in his writings, in his studies, he has shown that the Igbo people are also Israelites of the Bible, among other people. So why is it important? Because once you realize that the Igbo people are the Israelites, then you realize the Yoruba people are Israelites. You realize the Ashanti people are Israelites, and that we come from all of them. You realize that the Awe and the Fon and the Mandinka and the Wolof and the Serer and the Jollof, the Jola people, and so many more. You realize that we came from them. You realize that that's how we know that we're the Israelites, because we know the Israelites were there, and that's who was taken from Africa, and that's who was sent on the slave ships to the Western Hemisphere. So thank you for joining. There'll be more on this. Peace and blessings to you. Praise Yahweh.